Hello all, Elite DSP here, and today I'm bringing you a Jade Harvester's Guide to Legendary Gems. In today's guide we're going to go over the best in slot gems, as well as a few situational gems. So let's start off by talking about the best gem for Jade. This is Bane of the Trapped. Bane of the Trap increases damage done to enemies under control and parrying effects by 5%. The damage bonus is in its own category, so it stacks multiplicatively with all other sources of damage. The bonus starts at 15% and increases by 0.3% for every rank of the legendary gem. At rank 25 it gains an additional effect, which gives you a 15-yard radius aura that reduces the movement speed of all enemies by 30%. Now the big question that I usually see around this gem is what counts as a control impairing effect? Well, short answer is control impairing effect is any effect that stops or slows the movement of enemies. As expected, this includes enemies that are under the effects of both Horrify and Pronado. But as you may not expect, it also includes Haunt, which, in addition to its own damage, slows the enemies. The secondary effect on Bane of the Trap also procs the bonus damage from the gem. With all the ways you have to proc Bane of the Trapped, and the massive amount of damage that it adds to your build, it is definitely a best in slot gem. Now, the next gem we're going to talk about is Bane of the Powerful. Bane of the Powerful and Bane of the Trapped should be put in your rings at all cost. Regardless of any other stat that you could roll on your rings, these are going to be stronger. Bane of the Powerful gives you a 20% damage buff after killing an elite pack. Now for blue packs this means killing all the blues, and for yellow packs this means killing both the yellow and all its white minions. Now on illusion packs, this will proc whenever you kill an illusion. I'm assuming this is a bug, but that's how it works. The duration of the buff starts at 30 seconds and gains 1 second for every rank of the gem. The 20% damage buff stacks additively with other percent damage buffs like Pierce the Veil and Strong Arm Bracers. At rank 25, the gem gains a secondary, which increases elite damage by 15%. This stacks additively with all other sources of elite damage. Because of how strong the secondary is, Bane of the Powerful should be ranked 25 first, followed then by Bane of the Trapped. At rank 25, Bane of the Trapped gains 7.5% extra damage, whereas Bane of the Powerful gains 15% elite damage. Bane of the Powerful also will gain 25 extra seconds on the buff duration, which will keep it up for much longer than it would at level 1. Bane of the Powerful and Bane of the Trapped are both considered mandatory gems. They both greatly increase the amount of damage that you put out. Now, these next gems I consider optional gems. These gems only give a slight upgrade over a perfectly rolled amulet without a socket. The first of these gems, the one that's most commonly used, is Gem of Efficacious Toxin. Gem of Efficacious Toxin deals poison damage to all enemies hit over 10 seconds. This starts at 2000% weapon damage and increases by 50% weapon damage for each rank. At rank 25, it gains a secondary that increases all damage dealt to poison enemies by 10%. This damage will stack up to 4 times for each person in the party that has the gem, and is additive with other sources of increased damage, like Pierce the Veil and Strong Arm Bracers. So usually there's a lot of questions about this gem. 1. How does it proc? 2. Does it work with Soul Harvest? And 3. Is this worth putting a socket in my amulet? The answer to question 2, does this work with Soul Harvest, is yes it does. However, since the dot isn't modified by Quetzalcoatl or by Creeping Death, it doesn't do nearly as much as, say, a Haunt would do. So, in essence, you'll see about 5 to 7% extra damage just from the dot, and then that extra 10% damage, which would be a little bit less because you'll have bonuses like Strong Arm Bracers or Pierce the Veil. Now this also kind of answers the question, is this worth putting in my amulet? And I would say yes, as long as you can get rid of either the cold damage on your amulet or the intellect on your amulet. I would not replace this in turn for a crit hit chance or crit hit damage, as those are very strong modifiers. This just leaves the question, how does it proc? Now this is a little more interesting. It procs off of 4 different spell spheres. It'll proc off of Haunt, but only the initial cast. It'll proc off of Locust Swarm, but again only the initial cast or when it bounces. It doesn't proc off of the ticks for both of these. so it won't refresh itself. It also procs off of Pronado, and this one, it'll actually refresh itself on each tick of Pronado. So if you Soul Harvest when the mobs are inside of Pronado, it'll refresh the damage. And the last one is Horrify. Now, Horrify doesn't actually do damage, but it will proc Gem of Efficacious Toxin. Now for a gem that has the potential to be the strongest gem in the game, but is very rarely used. This is Taeguk. Taeguk gives you a stacking armor and damage bonus for every time you spend a resource. Now, most of your spells cost resources. Haunt, Locust Swarm, and Pronado all take your resources, and you spam Haunt, you use Locust Swarm and Pronado constantly. So getting this to stack up doesn't really take too long. The problem with it is that it only lasts 3 seconds. You can get this stacked up to full within about the first minute or two of the rift, but keeping it at full means between every pact you have to sit there and cast a haunt every 3 seconds. So you'll stop, cast a haunt, run a little bit, stop, cast a haunt. For most rifts, this is more time than it's actually worth in the extra damage that you get at Taeguk. With rank 44, like I have mine, you get 64 stacks, which is 32% extra damage. That's even more than Bane of the Trap gives. But the difficulty with keeping your stacks up makes it so that it's not an ideal gem for everybody to use. Places where I would suggest to use this are in trials, where you really don't want to use Bane of the Powerful, since there are no elites. Or if you're trying to do super high Greater Rift content, like rank 1 type stuff where you're doing Greater Rift 44. The only reason why I would suggest this is because you're going to end up searching for the perfect rift anyways, and a perfect rift means super high density where there's not going to be time between packs, so you're not going to have that problem of wasting time trying to get a Taeguk stack back up. Taeguk could be the difference for that extra little bit of damage to finish the rift. Now, the last gem we're going to talk about is Goguk of Swiftness. Goguk of Swiftness gives you a stacking buff whenever you hit a target that gives you a 1% damage and 1% cooldown reduction, up to 15 stacks. Now, it suffers from some of the same problems that Taeguk has, where it goes down after 4 seconds. What makes this worse is that you can't refresh it without minions, without something to hit. What makes this even worse is that its chance to hit is affected by your proc coefficients. The one nice thing is that when a haunt jumps, it acts as a new proc, so you can actually get these up quite quickly if you're killing mobs and haunt is jumping to the next mob. The only time I can really see using this instead of another gem like Gem of Efficacious Toxin or even Taeguk would be at extremely high values of cooldown reduction. I'm talking like I've got about 44% on my gear, add on a Vigilante belt, and then this, and hoped that you'll get about 50 to 55%. This would allow for you to have basically your either all the enemies to be feared at one time, or you to be in Spirit Walk, so that you should never get hit. And again, this would only be used for very high rank Greater Rifts. Okay, well we just made it through all the best in slot legendary gems, and the few possible uses for some of the others. If you guys still have any questions, anything that I didn't cover completely, let me know in the comments. As always, please rate this guide, it helps me know what you guys like and what you guys don't like. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. If you guys want to see the rest of this Greater Rift, I'll be going through it in detail in Armchair Rifting Episode 4. Thanks for watching.